Hello, everybody. This is Oromia National Media in collaboration with Fimpine News Network. In our today's program, we will discuss about the political atmosphere in Oromia and Ethiopia, especially in relation to last week's U.S. ambassador's political policy statement in the Ethiopian capital. The Ethiopian government reaction sounded like they were irritated, and they issued a statement, a press release, and they were annoyed by the content of the United States ambassador's policy statement. Besides that, the political atmosphere in Ethiopia is rapidly changing, and we'll be discussing about those. And I have a guest today. Probably you all know he is esteemed Professor Hambisa Balena. So we'll be discussing with Hambisa today about the political atmosphere in Oromia and Ethiopia. Dr. Hambisa, today I would like us to start by discussing about the Oromo people. Who are the Oromo people, and why do the Oromo people struggle for independence? What is the political context, especially for our viewers from outside Ethiopia who do not completely understand the context of why the Oromo people struggle, and but especially in this era, why are we still struggling for independence? So I would like you to start by discussing the political and historical context within which the Oromo struggle is taking place.
Thank you, Daniel. First of all, I would like to thank you for this opportunity for having me. Well, in a nutshell, what we could say is the Oromo are an indigenous population in Africa. They lost their independence in the late 19th century. It was a collaboration of the then European imperial powers who gave modern weaponry to Menelik, the Abyssinian local leader at the time. And by using this weaponry provided by the British Empire, the Italian and the French, he marched southward and dominated Oromiyaa and other peoples that are currently in Ethiopia. The Oromo make about half the population of the Ethiopia, even though the official statistics shows that they make about 35%. But since the forceful incorporation of Oromia into Ethiopia, the Oromos have been marginalized like the other southern nations, like the Somali, the Sidama, the Walaita, and so on. That there was not, it was not possible to independently and neutrally count the people and tell the exact population size. But approximately, probably the Oromo would make up to 60 million. And unfortunately, let alone the Europeans and the far situated countries, even our African neighbors don't know much about Oromiyaa. And this is because the Oromiyaa, after its conquest, it was so dominated. Its existence, it is culture, it is language, its religion, its political system, were all put down. And so the Oromo were reduced to a very marginalized serfdom in the Ethiopian Empire. What happened is in the early 20th century, those three nations, the British Empire, the Italians and the French came together. They came into a treaty, and under that treaty, they said exactly, to quote, it says, France, Great Britain, and Italy shall cooperate in maintaining the political and territorial status quo in Ethiopia as determined by state of affairs at present existing, and the following arrangements. So what they did is they wanted the Ethiopian empire to remain intact. So the Ethiopian empire was formed as a dependent colonial power, not having any technological or industrial advancement, but relying on the advancement of these Western powers. And since then, that was really incorporated in the foreign policy of the Western powers, including America. And nobody was really ready, no nation was really ready to pay attention to the plight of the Oromo people. So the Oromo have been neglected, the Oromo have been marginalized, and that's how the Oromo story, the Oromo African story, has been hidden from the public view. Now, going forward, the Oromo eventually started, they didn't accept being subjugated from the very beginning. And actually, history shows us that the Oromo was reduced to half its population size during the takeover. So it was reduced from 10 million to 5 million. But then afterwards, the Oromo has been struggling to maintain its independence, or also to remain as a people. Then for a long while, the Oromo have been organized, starting demanding their rights, and this struggle took place, and also some sort of formal organizational activities started with the formation of the Maj'at Ulama self-help organization, later on with the formation of the Oromo Liberation Front, the protracted war for over 30 years. Then in 1991, when the military government was disposed, some sort of arrangement where the Oromo peoplehood, as well as other nations' peoplehood, is somehow recognized in the current constitution.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hambisa, for explaining the context in which the Oromo struggle for independence started. When we look at since the Oromo Liberation Front and Oromo Liberation Army have been established and took over the organized struggle of the Oromo people, a number of changes happened in 1991. As you mentioned, the previous capitalist communist regime of Ethiopia was disposed, and the transitional government was established. OLF was part of that transitional government, but the EPRDF at that point viewed the OLF as a threat to its future if Ethiopia was democratized and an election was held in which the OLF really participated. So the EPRDF pushed it out of the transitional government. And again, after the Oromo youth struggle, a change happened in the Ethiopian government in 2018, and TPLF was pushed out of the EPRDF, and some hope for political reform came into being, Abiy Ahmed coming as the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. But still, the Oromo question for independence remains. Almost nothing was answered from the Oromo people's demands. and most of the Oromo youths who brought that change are now currently fighting in across Oromia. So I one thing I want to touch upon, you to touch upon, is about why is and how is the Oromo, colonization different from the rest of Africa? Why do countries, people or citizens from countries like Kenya, Uganda, nearby countries fail to understand the colonial relationship between Oromia and the Ethiopian government up to now? Why do the people fail to understand that? What is in there? That made the people fail to understand it. Sometimes they think Ethiopia is, their a pride of the rest of Africa. They want to say Ethiopia has never been colonized by Europe, but still, in Ethiopia, some people are colonized by other Black people or other, people who are currently part of Ethiopia. So, and I want us to explain this context. Why do people have it difficult to understand the colonial relationship that exists in Oromia? Why do the global community take this is very difficult to understand?
Yeah, that's a very good question, but it really requires us to discuss, go in more detail. But in a nutshell, the issue is uh, the the kind of colonialism that exists in Oromia is much different from the kind of colonialism we saw in the rest of Africa. In the rest of Africa, a white man from Europe came and settled among the people, and it tried to subjugate the people by using some elements from within the people, right? And when the time came, they were able to pack their luggage and leave. Um, so first of all, the kind of the one in Oromia is a kind of a centered colonialism. So probably in that regard, it resembles that of South Africa, where the white men came and settled in Africa, and then they subjugated them. Uh, However, the other difference is uh, the colonizers from Europe, and when they came to Africa, they had some basic advancement that they brought with themselves: road making advancement, technology, medicine, education, and so on. The Abesha colonizers don't have any of these things. They are not superior in any way to the indigenous people in Oromia and the Greater South. So they didn't have any technological advancement. They didn't bring new ways of making stuff or making roads and so on. So they just came and they become dependent on the local people. They didn't bring anything new. They didn't bring any advancement. They just came and become parasites on the local people. So the local people, they labor, they work, they produce, and the fruit of their labor goes to these parasite, settlers among them. The only thing that they were superior at was that they had this modern weaponry, which was handed over to them by the colonial powers of Europe, as we said earlier. So what they did is they settled among the people. The only thing that they have is a gun. So the people, not having the gun power, they just subjugated and they served them. And the other thing is, these people look like the Oromo and the Walaita, and the Gambela. You know, we look alike, and because of that, that is not possible. But the other thing is what I said earlier: the colonial powers, British, France, and Italy, they said we are going to keep the status quo. So what did they do? The Ethiopian government has never been to subsist. All right, it will never be able to subsist without the assistance received from European and American powers. So if you go back into history from the day of the creation of Ethiopia, which they say it's 3,000 years, but we know it is 100 plus years, right? Before that, yes, the Oromiyaa existed, the Amhara existed, the Tigray existed, and so on, but Ethiopia was never, right? But from that time on, Ethiopia either leaned on the European powers in America, the Western powers, or they leaned on the Russia. From 1974 to 1991, in the name of Marxism, they relied on Russia and got modern weaponry and assistance from, military advice from Russia. And that's how they kept it. So what happened is now the established state called Ethiopia was given this heightened status. They say this is it's a unique, it's an Ethiopian exceptionalism. Was never colonized by a Western power, and everybody listened, right? And the amazing thing is, like in my day-to-day activity, I met with some people, and when they knew that I am from that part of the world, oh, they said, oh, Ethiopia is such and such and such and such, and I say no, and then they start arguing against me. These people have never set foot in Ethiopia. They have never been in our position. They never knew what daily transpires in that country. But still, because they bought that legendary story that they were told, they just propagated. And I know the governments, the American government, the British government, the Italian government, the French government, or any other government exactly know what is going on. However, they are only pursuing their own interest. And in the pursuit of their own interest, it really doesn't matter if the Oromo were subjugated or marginalized. It didn't matter if the Walaita were, millions of them were killed and still remain in subjugation. So what happened is this legendary story has been adopted by our African nations, our African neighbors. Like everybody in Africa, because the African map was not really following it is what do you call natural development. It was an imaginary or an arbitrary making of nations. Like the issues we have in Rwanda and Burundi, for example, the same nation were cut into two, right? The Hutus into two, the Tutsis into two, the Oromos into 3 or 4 places. So what happened is this has happened, and these African nations have their own issues to deal with. So they don't want to touch on the Oromo case, and if the Oromo demand the Oromo get their independence, maybe, or the Oromo cause is advanced, and then probably some nations, their internal issues would also surface. So because of that, they have to keep it under wrap, I think.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ambisa. So in terms of population, as Dr. Hambisa mentioned, the Oromo are about 60 million, close to 35 to 40% of the Ethiopian population. So that means the Oromo population is almost about the sevens or eights in terms of number in Africa. So the size of the Oromo people is almost about the size of Kenya, and it's bigger than about 47, 46 countries in Africa. And this, in terms of population, it's about 27s, around 28s, and globally. In terms of other factors, culture, identity, and things that the Oromo people can claim, there is a lot. Ethiopian, all Ethiopian athletes, you can say most of them, about 90% of Ethiopian athletes are from Oromia. The gross domestic product in Ethiopia, most of it comes from Oromia, the natural resource. Oromia is endowed with a lot of natural resources. And so if Oromia becomes independent, can it sustain itself? That have the raw materials that make a country a country? I believe it can. The capital itself is located in Oromia. So the African Union and other diplomatic institutions are right in the center of Oromia. Now, Dr. Ambisa, I want us to discuss about the peace talks between the OLA, OLF-OLA, and the Ethiopian government that took place in 2023 and early this year, and the reason that failed. And now that we know the peace talks between the Ethiopian government and the OLF-OLA has failed, but the Ethiopian government is pushing for national dialogue. When the government failed to resolve the issue peacefully resolve the political crisis in Oromia with the OLF-OLA at the global stage, at this time the Ethiopian government is pushing for national dialogue that is overseen by the government itself. Can a national dialogue deliver a solution and settlement to the political crisis in Ethiopia while the peace talks and negotiation at the global level failed? And I want you to discuss on that.
Thank you, Daniel. First of all, I think peacemaking requires commitment to peace, a genuine commitment to peace. And in my view, in my understanding, the Ethiopian regime never had any commitment to peace. And I don't really believe it is committed to peace at this time as well. What happened is the way it came into being, the way Ethiopia came to being, and the way Ethiopia has been kept together. Ethiopia came together by force, and Ethiopia is still being kept together by force. Ethiopia has never reckoned its path. Ethiopia has never taken into consideration how do we really solve and move from where we are now. And there is no genuine peace. I have spoken about this so many times. In the authors, Sisai Ibsa and Bonnie Hollycomb, they say the systematic, the policy of systematic showcasing. What it does is the Ethiopian government, the reality at home is very different from what they propagate to the international on the international scene. So internally, they are not committed to peace. Internally, they have no regard for peace. They are the ones who are killing extrajudicially. They are the ones who are terrorizing the population. They are the enemies of the peace, but always they put themselves as if they stand for peace. And I don't think this is hidden from the international community. But the international community didn't find it, I don't know, didn't find it reasonable, didn't find it to their interest to genuinely ask for a genuine peace settlement in Ethiopia. What made a difference now? The different populations who were so marginalized, who were so kept in the dark for a century or more, have come up now. So the technological development, especially the fact that we have this what do you call it, mobile phone and the internet, and that the fact that the globe has become a village rather than a widely dispersed world that we knew before, and that everybody is now in a position to know what happens in any corner of the world, and Ethiopia lost control. Ethiopia couldn't hide what is going within the country. So Ethiopia is fully committed to fight its own people, to the extent where it has to go to a neighboring country, Eritrea, and invite that neighboring country to come and kill its own people, its own population. The population, they say, is the one who gave us power, who elected us to rule. But they invited a foreign nation and they killed their own people. That is what they have been doing. And now what has come is the international community cannot really unsee what it has seen. They cannot unhear what has been heard. They have seen that when a human being is put into fire, they have seen when the Eritrean military has come and raped and killed and loot. So they have to somehow, even though maybe not necessarily committed to a genuine peace in Ethiopia, they have to somehow speak against it, against what is going on in Ethiopia. So what I'm saying is that what is transpiring in Ethiopia cannot be hidden any longer. So it has come to surface. It has erupted. Since the volcano has erupted, it is not possible to put it back. What do they call it? The genie is out. Once the genie is out, you cannot put it in a box any longer. It is out there. So that is what is going on. So they came to Uganda. The Ethiopian government came to Uganda and the Tanzania for a peace talk, with the assumption that they can control everything the way it was before. They couldn't advance with the advancement that is in the world now. They couldn't change. They couldn't take into consideration where the international communities are now, because the way you function in any other nation, the way you deal with the process in any other nation is now a testimony to where you stand. And so that is the problem that is going on. They couldn't hide. They could not malign the OLA. They could not woodwink it. They could not wrap them under control. So this issue has come to the front, and I think that is what is going on now. Where does it go from here? In my view, Ethiopia is not in a position to change. The rhetoric we hear in 2024 is the same rhetoric we were hearing in the 1960s and 1950s and 1970s. You know, one of the things that nations do, nations gauge change. Nations see where the world population is, where advancement is taking us. So whether they like it or not, they have to come to terms with the change and make a necessary adjustment. The Ethiopian government, the Ethiopian regime has not made that adjustment, and I don't think it is in a position to make that adjustment. So when they are talking about national dialogue now, they are saying, you know, you just we would hoodwink you. You have to pretend that you don't know anything and follow suit, and that's not going to happen, and that is not possible. So no, a national dialogue is not possible under the current circumstance. The national dialogue that is going on is the Ethiopian government with its own self, with the Ethiopian government. The PP against its subsidiary parties like Birhanu Naga's party and so on, but not with really with the possibility of bringing a genuine peace in Ethiopia. The registered political parties like the OLF, like the OFC, or like the Inat party or other parties in Ethiopia, which are really functioning in that country, they have already said we cannot participate because there is no security. How would you you see when they come to a meeting and these guys are coming in their military uniform with power and they say we are going to dialogue with you. It's not possible. So first of all, the process needs to be neutral. It needs to be transparent. It needs a genuine, neutral third party who would lead the negotiation process. It needs to be in an environment where you have safety to send your people and talk, right? And all these things are not going to happen now. So they are the only place that the Ethiopian government has under its control is the capital, the way I say it. Any other place it is, right? Now they are saying the warring parties like the OLA or the FANO or anybody else should come to Finfinne and then you know and the what do you call the commissioners? The commission said we will give you guarantee. They don't have even guarantee for themselves. They don't know when they would be sacked. You know, they don't know if they are going to be able to do anything, right? Like the Human Rights Commission the other day when they were starting to investigate the killing of the assassination of our dear brother Batte, and they were stopped because unless you subscribe to the government and or the ruling party's ideology, the ruling party's narrative and story, or the outcome the ruling party has set for itself, you cannot do anything. So no, I don't think a genuine national dialogue could be undertaken as it is now.
Thank you, Dr. Amisa. So what is the likely political scenario if the national dialogue is not going to resolve the conflict that's taking place in Oromia and Amara region, and the Ethiopian government has refused to you know, give and take, to compromise its positions and requirement of DDR the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration requests that it tabled, in Dar es Salaam. If the Ethiopian government doesn't change its positions and compromise and accept and come to a decision of give and take, how would the political situation end, and then how would the crisis in Ethiopia end? Is that likely to be through military defeat of the government, and is that likely? What do you think? With this, I would like to mention about the Ethiopian government's military officials, Yilma Mardasa. Yilma Mardasa is the commander of the Ethiopian Defense Air Force, and around April 14, the Oromo Liberation Army conducted some operation around Amaya. It's in Shawa Zone, Central Oromia. And in that operation, it was said that the government have settled military barracks around the homes of the families and brothers of Yilma Mardasa, who is the Ethiopian Air Force commander. And the OLA attacked the camp and apprehended about 23 family members of the Yilma Mardasa, and about 25 family members of Yilma Mardasa. And in that operation, one of Yilma Mardasa's brother was killed when he came out with a gun. The 23 family members, including mothers and children, who were captured during that raid, were released, but two still remain in the custody of the Oromo Liberation Army. And they recently gave an interview to Oromia national media in which they showed that they are happy, they are with the OLA right now, and they didn't accept the Ethiopian government's settlement of military barrack around their home because they were isolated from the communities. They were not free to participate in social life. They were not allowed to intermingle with the population. They can't go to burial ceremonies. They can't go to funerals. They can't visit family members. They can't have coffee with their neighbors because of the military settlement around their homes. And they were isolated. And now the Oromo Liberation Army freed them. And even though they're great about the days of their brother, they appear to be happy to be with the OLA because it's the same people, and they were well taken care of, and they were not tortured or ill-treated at the hands of the OLA. And it was said that Yilma Mardasa, who vowed to retaliate in continuing the attack on the OLA, kept on conducting some aerial bombardment using military jets and drones. And one of those attacks nearly missed his own brothers. His own brothers were almost attacked in one of those government operations. And this tells me the liberation movement by the Oromo Liberation Front, Oromo Liberation Army, has gained ground and have now, and its impact is being felt in the government itself, in the higher ranks of the government itself. So when we look at the general atmosphere of the political situation in Ethiopia, how would this crisis end if the government fails to compromise, even though there are genuine changes, there are tangible changes in terms of the military conflict as well as the diplomatic arena?
That's a very detailed to unpack. Let me table the Yilma Mardasa's brothers issue for a while and talk to how would we come to some sort of solution. As I said, I don't really believe the Ethiopian government has ever been committed to peace, and especially the regime that exists now, he has no commitment to peace. So what's the way out? The way out is, I think, the military pressure is important. You know, the warring, especially the freedom fighters, should keep on pressing while showing their commitment to peace, while showing their commitment to international, sponsored, third-party sponsored dialogue, where they could come together and talk. Then the government needs to be pressured to somehow come to a position where it cannot settle this issue through fighting. The other issue you didn't mention is the other day there was the U.S. ambassador in Finfinne made a speech. In that speech, one of the things he said was, he said detaining critics would not resolve Ethiopia's outstanding issues, and that the political dialogue that the Ethiopians need could be helped by releasing key political figures. So what he's trying to say was, look, it's not possible to end this issue only through war, right? A genuine commitment is important. That genuine commitment is why releasing political prisoners. So, in my view, the U.S. has come to this position right very recently. I think I have not seen this straight, direct talk where you say, "Okay, we see what is happening, and unless this come to an end, it's not possible to bring a genuine peace in Ethiopia." So the diplomatic pressure, whether it is from the US or from Europe or from any other nation, has to intensify. These nations need to understand that their portion, their role so far has been more in destabilizing Ethiopia. Because when you align yourself with the party that is striking terror in that country, the party that is not committed to peace, when you give your bilateral economic or military or any other help, when you are what do you call where there is an intense cash flow, right? The much needed international currency flow to the nation, what it gives them is, okay, nothing happens. We can get money from the US, we can get money from UK and anywhere else, and then we would go buy drones from wherever, from Iran or from Turkey, and then we are now licensed to kill our own people, right? We can act with impunity, right? But now what the US, at least what it looks like, is the US ambassador is saying, no, we have come to a position where we think you are at wrong now. So you need to stop. So that talk is important, but the most important next step is to deny this economic, right? Economic cash flows into the country. The country has the government has to come to a realization that it cannot go by and the TBT drones. It cannot go by and order more tanks from Russia or whatever. Right? It has to come to a position where it says, I cannot finance this war, so I cannot go on the way it is. That means I need to amend my way. I need to make a change. I need to listen to the international community's plea. I need to listen to my own population's plea. Right? Unless that is happened, I don't think it is possible. So the Ethiopian regime has to be stopped by force. If that force is as from the fighting forces or from the international community, where they deny this bilateral or unilateral help that they have been giving to the country for forever. Remember that treaty we talked about earlier. That treaty says, the first article of the treaty says, we keep the status quo. And then the fourth article of that treaty says, in the event of the status quo laid in Article 1 is being disturbed, France, Great Britain, and Italy shall make every effort to preserve the integrity of Ethiopia. So what they are saying is, whether the population is at risk, whether the Ethiopian regime fights its own people the way it did in Tigray and the way they are doing in Oromia and Amara now, we are going to stand by Ethiopia regardless of what. That needs to be changed. If that change is made, and we know that the Ethiopian government wouldn't be able to exist for 3 months, for a quarter, without assistance being given by Europe or America. And that needs to stop. If that stops, and if they also pressure the government to come to a negotiating table, then it is possible. Otherwise, the only choice that would be left is somehow to militarily defeat them.
Thank you for reading about the United States ambassador's policy statement on human rights and dialogue. Despite that statement was, it was torn down, the Ethiopian government found it irritating, and they had to issue a press release in which they said the U.S. ambassador gave us unsolicited advice about how to run the affairs of the Ethiopian government. They said the statements were not factual. They were also rotated for because the ambassador mentioned, what they said are worrying to, forcefully change an elected government. In the first place, Abiy Ahmed was, of course, he was a member of EPRDF and came into power after the Oromo youth struggle. And he expelled TPLF from EPRDF and created a new party called Prosperity Party. According to Ethiopian law, a party has to, collect a signature from the public in the thousands and submit that to the Ethiopian Election Commission. The Election Commission has to take time and examine the evidences of and this political establishment, and finally included and allowed to participate in elections and the like. Prosperity Party came into being immediately. It was recognized and it was allowed to participate in election, but not to participate in election. It was established now and became the leader of the country, like the ruling party. And that is like a kind of magic, how Abiy concocted, a political party that then became the ruling party in the Ethiopian political empire. It showed there is a vacuum, the political vacuum. There is the public have no say about what happens and who comes to power in that country. The Prosperity Party of Abiy Ahmed went to the election in 20, I think it was in 2020. It went to election without participation of any genuine political opposition, leaving the OLA leadership in jail, and house arresting the leader of the Oromo Liberation Front that was registered. Dawood Ibsa was on house arrest. When it comes to OFC, Oromia Federalist Congress, the high-ranking political figures in the organization, in the party, such as Jawar Muhammad, Bakari Garba, were all put in prison. And it was in the absence of all genuine opposition political parties that the the Prosperity Party went to election and legitimized its own rule on the people. Now they cite that election and say a unelected government. Can we even say the Ethiopian government's unelected government? Also, why was that the Ethiopian government was so irritated at the toned down political the policy statement of the United States? And what do you expect the US to do? The US ambassadors, including Masinga, and Mike Hammer were the mediators that were part of the peace talks in Tanzania. They have seen what every side have tabled, and they have found that the Ethiopian government side was uncompromising and lacking content, and it didn't gauge, the political situation at this moment, and it wouldn't result in a resolution of the crisis. That's what they understood. So I feel the OLA at the peace talks have gained a lot of victory in terms of diplomatic victory, and that's what pressured the American government also realize the real situation in Ethiopia and issue the statement press release. But the Ethiopian government was so irritated, and if you like, and I want you to discuss on that.
Yeah, I briefly what I could say is I have the press release from the Ethiopian government on my desk now. What they say is the U.S. ambassador gave unsolicited advice to the Ethiopian government, the government of Ethiopia, on how best to run the affairs of the country, and mention group that bent overthrowing the elected government by force. And then it says these groups are known for blackmailing, kidnapping, and terrorizing civilians. Any casual observer in Ethiopia, whether a local observer or an international observer, knows that the Ethiopian government is the one which is engaged in blackmailing, in kidnapping, in terrorizing, and extrajudicially killing its own population. The population it says it's leading. The population it says it was democratically elected to lead. And this is really amazing. The Ethiopian government is the biggest terrorist organization in Ethiopia, to speak the truth. And what that irritates them here is the mention of the other groups, the mention of all OLA or the mention of FANO. Probably they thought Ambassador Masinga ought to say Shane instead of OLA. It's just ridiculous. But what we know is what we said earlier. We are under the watchful eyes of the international community. it is not possible to hide what is going on in Ethiopia now. So I think it has to be an alarm. It has to be a reminder to the Ethiopian government that business as usual, business like doing things in the hidden, out of sight, is no longer possible. And some other news organizations, as you know, they have people, representatives in the internal affairs, in the governments, right, in their probably bedrooms and so on, who are giving them information. Informations are leaking out, and you cannot hide what is going on. So the best way, instead of trying to woodwink people, instead of trying to bamboozle, is to come to terms that we need to do things in a very genuine and transparent way. If that happens, then solution would come. The other thing is really encouraging the attaches and embassies and international expatriate staff in Ethiopia to speak the truth, to align themselves with the marginalized people. If that happens, then possible solutions would come out. But if the international community gives a passing mark on everything that the Ethiopian government does, then I don't think there would be any solution inside.
So with all this going on right now, what do you think would be the best outcome for the Oromo people? What are the core questions of the Oromo people that are not answered? And, you know, what is the best outcome? What are the scenarios for the Oromo people?
Yeah. If you allow me, I'll go back to the Yilma Deresa thing first. The Yilma, what's not Yilma Deresa, Yilma, what's the
Yilma Mardasa.
Yilma Mardasa, yeah. The doings of Yilma Mardasa, the General Yilma Mardasa, are really, these are dangerous stuff. If by association only, anybody who is related to me is really supporting me because I'm their brother, and when I'm a go around, a go between for the government, right? When I work against my own population, and you think my brothers and sisters and my father and mother and uncles and aunts are also fighting against their own people in support of me, that's really, it's a very childish way to do things. And what he did in trying to only protect his family, his position as the commander of the Air Force, the high-ranking official of the Air Force, his position was to safeguard all of Ethiopians, right? And if you go to Amaya, then his position, first position, to be protect all Amayans. But what he did is he went to his home. Only the 25 people in his very close circle. So what he did is he really disrupted the social fabric. These 25 people were alienated from their neighbors, right and left. They were considered as enemies of the community. He exposed them. So either his thinking was really childish, or I don't know if he was, I don't know if this was protecting those people, making them enemies of their own community. And if you remember, one of his brothers, I don't know which one, he said he has a son who is a member of the OLA. And now he is saying, this Imam Madrasa is saying to this brother of his, your son is your enemy. Your son, who is a member of the OLA, is your enemy, because he is the enemy of the Ethiopian government. Then his brother has to consider him as if he is also his enemy. And that's wrong. So if protection was provided, that protection ought to be provided for all Ethiopians, if that is the case. If you have this mentality of protecting all Ethiopians, all the people, then why do you first of all fight against the OLA? Why do you say, you are not allowed to self-govern, you're not allowed to exist? How many times did they vow to finish off the OLA within 15 days? For how many years? Over the last 6 years, we have heard them repeatedly saying in the next 15 days, we will get rid of them. Right? But the OLA grew larger and larger and stronger and stronger. And the OLA was said to be in West Wallaga. Now the OLA is everywhere. The OLA is in Finfinne. The OLA is in Shaga. The OLA is in Bishoftu, in Akaki, and so on. So the issue is really, if the government is really, or Yilma himself is really committed to peace, then the first thing he should do is they have to take stock of what they are doing, how they have been governing, right? When you go and burn houses with all their contents, especially our very poor farmers in the rural area, when you burn their homesteads and homes, and sometimes them inside their houses, what are you telling the people? You are saying, we are your enemy, you are our enemy, we want to eradicate you, we want to finish you off, we don't want you to exist. Even in your misery, we don't want you to exist. We have relegated you to serfdom. We have relegated to poor existence. But even this existence, we don't want you to have it. And so that is an issue that needs to be addressed. And what is the Oromo question? The Oromo question from the very beginning was, I want to be an owner of my own destiny. I want to shape my destiny. I want to shape my fate. I want to be, right? I want to elect my own leaders. I want to govern my own affair. I want to be, make association with anybody I want to with. And sever any unfruitful and proper, unwarranted relationship with anyone I don't want to associate with. That's human rights. And I want to be free, right? Free to pursue whatever I want to, free to pursue whatever religion I want to pursue, free to elect my own people, free my own leaders, free to govern my affair, and free to associate, free to do whatever I do. If I'm farming, I want to be in freedom and farm and raise my family, right? Send to my kids to school, pursue life as anybody around the world does. And that's a question. And you earlier you mentioned about democracy. The issue with Ethiopia is the ruling group, the ruling elite, or what have you, has never wanted to be in a democratic situation, because in a democratic situation, every man, every vote, then the people would be free to elect whoever really represents their views and whoever is leading them to where they go. And when these leaders fail to do what they were supposed to do, then the people wants to be able to uproot them, right? To call them from office. Since the Ethiopian government is afraid of democracy, because if democracy means it becomes with responsibility, right? It becomes with accountability. You will be accountable for whatever you say and you do in a democratic nation, in a democratic order, right? And the will of the people rules. And these people, they don't want the will of the people to rule. They don't want to be subjugated to the will. In democracy, what do you say? Power emanates from the people. Right? Power rests with the people. It's the people who would say, okay, part of this power I have, I want to share it with this group voluntarily, so that this group would organize me and lead me. When they fail to do that, then I will call them off and elect somebody else who would lead me according to right the values I set. So the Ethiopian government or Ethiopian regime has never been a friend of democracy, and it is not a friend of democracy and human rights. That's a problem going on. Yes, we have come far. Just to answer your question, in the 1960s, the questions were land to the tiller, and the national recognition of nations and nationalities, right? The ability to self-rule, right? And also democracy, right? In the last 60, 50 years, here and then we have achieved certain things, not necessarily in the way it was planned initially, but somehow we have made progress. Land is now no more in the hand of a few, even though this government, the current regime, has made it in the hand of a few, right? They sell the land as they wish. They what do you call? They uproot the indigenous people from their land and sell their land. But even this probably it's a little bit better than it was in the 1950s and 60s. And then we have come to a position where every nation and nationality has developed its culture to some extent, freedom to develop its culture to some extent. And to some extent, I say, because it's not fully done. The nationalities and nations have been recognized to some extent, but self-rule was not really implemented. And the current regime and some of those who are fighting against it, they just want to eradicate that too. They want to take it back and form a unitary government where they can rule as they wish. But we have come so far. And the nations have been able to develop their languages to some extent. But that is also being under question now. It's being questioned now. So we are at a crossroad as we are now. We don't know where we would be 5 years from today. Are we going to be better off from the 2018, where we get rid of the EPRDF, or are we going to be in a much worse position than we were in 2018? the way it is, the progress we see is not a progress. Actually, it's a regress. We see a lot of regressing happening, right? We're going backward, right? So the right to self-government is being questioned. The right to use your language is being questioned. The right to elect your own leaders is questioned. Now somebody, an individual who sits at Minilik's palace in Finfinne is electing all the leaders around the nation. And that's absurd, right? So there are many things that are in question. We have come so far, but there are also many things that are being questioned. And so it's we are in a kind of a limbo as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ambisa. So recently, Abiy went to Nekante and said he felt at home, and this time he said, "I came to my people and I feel very good." And he stated, tried to speak the language of the people, and they said, we have been oppressed and colonized for over 100 years by the bad people, and now we have to unite. We have to address our security problem. We have to economically be resilient and focus on the economy. And it was just a lip service to the Oromo people when you evaluate, when you assess it. He spoke of all this, and he spoke as if he went to his own people. And then he went to the north and he inaugurated a resort, a very huge resort, a very standard resort, and inaugurated a bridge on the Abai River, Blue Nile River in Bayardar. So, like in the Mara region in Gondar, there was that resort that was inaugurated in Bayardar. They inaugurated that modern bridge over the Blue Nile River. When it comes to Oromiyaa, it was just a lip service, and so I feel the government, in addition to the security situation, in addition to the human rights abuses, have neglected the Oromiyaa state in terms of economic development, and it's just providing lip service to the people, try to deceive the people with soft talking and all that. And so that's something that you want, and I want you to comment on, relative comparing the Oromiyaa state, the Ethiopian government's policy in terms of economic policy on Oromiyaa and in the other regions of the Ethiopian empire. And the other thing is that there is also an ongoing war in the Amara region. The U.S. ambassador in that policy statement said to the OLA, you have genuine and you have made a genuine effort and went to Dar es Salaam for the peace talks. Don't give up. And this is a huge statement from a U.S. official. And the U.S. policy has not been done, especially when it comes to the Oromo struggle for self-determination and independence. And this is a huge, huge diplomatic victory for the Oromo Liberation Front, Oromo Liberation Army. In addition, I think that should most likely have also pressured the American government to, stretch their hands to other political oppositions, especially Oromo political opposition. The U.S. officials, Mike Hammer, the U.S. Special Envoy to the Horn of Africa, made the political leaders, Oromo political leaders in the capital. They spoke with Dawood Ibsa of the Oromo Liberation Front and Marara Gudina of Oromo Federalist Congress. and they discussed about the future of the country. So there is it looks like there is a paradigm shift in the view of the American government. Now they are entertaining the Oromo political leaders and political forces, and they are being rightly for what they are. And I think Mike Hammer and other officials of the U.S. And the U.S. embassy in the capital have also previously spoken and made Batte Rugesa, the person whom they knew was assassinated by the government, and all those kind of the political game that the Ethiopian government is conducting, that toxic political atmosphere seems to have pressured the American government to realize we can't, this is not sustainable, this is not good for Ethiopia, this is not good for us. When it comes to the political situation in the north, they mentioned about Fano, who they said, Ambassador Masinga said, those who call themselves Fano, you can't achieve anything by rejecting a peace process. And also he spoke about the TPLF, that they have far-reaching implication both within Tigray and outside Tigray, and call for them to play a role in stabilizing Ethiopia. So what do you think about the political atmosphere in the Amara region and Tigray and everywhere else in Ethiopia right now? If you can comment on that.
Yes, Daniel. You know, sometimes even international players say the current Ethiopian regime is an Oromo government. That's to be honest, that is an insult to the Oromo people. The Oromo people never elected. Actually, even if they say this government was elected, it was not elected in Oromia. In Oromiyaa, the party abolished everything else, right? Closed the offices of the OLF and the OFC and any other political party in Oromia. They imprisoned all political players in Oromia, and so they ran unopposed. So if only the registered party members of the Prosperity Party, members of the Prosperity Party, went to the elections and cast their vote, then all PP contenders would be elected. That's what happened. So when there is no choice, it's not an election. An election is where the opposing parties or opposing ideologies, opposing plans for the future, opposing dreams come to the public, and the public makes a choice. And that choice was not given in Oromiyaa. That's number one. The other thing is, when Abiy came to power in April 2018, the first region in which a military, what do you call it? The military rule was instituted was in Oromiyaa. Since then, many parts of Oromiyaa are still under military rule. The military rules as it wishes. It kills whom it wishes to kill. It rapes whom it wishes to rape. It detains whom it wishes to detain. It does whatever it wishes to do. So the Oromo have been under siege since 2018. The Kero movement, the Kero who brought down the APRDF government, the TPLF-led APRDF government, were imprisoned, they were killed, they were co-opted into the Prosperity Party by force, or they were forced to go and join the OLA. The political organizations are no more. There is no genuine political organization in Oromiyaa now. Right? The OLF and the OFC, their offices were closed, their leaders were imprisoned, right? And they were not given any free move. There is no movement. They cannot organize any mass rally. They cannot go and speak to people freely. So Oromiyaa is under siege. The Oromo is really in a bad situation, probably similar to the late 19th century when Menelik got a weapon from Great Britain, Italy, and France, and moved in southward, killing hundreds of thousands of millions of people. The same is being done now. So no, the current government, there are Oromo-speaking people in it, like Abiy and Shimelis and so on, who really speak the language, but their affiliation, their alliance is with the what do you call it? The system that is meant to subjugate the Oromo. So the war that started with Menelik has never been abated. The ills that were done by Menelik and then by Haile Selassie, Mengistu, and Meles, and Haile Mariam, and then Abiy has never been addressed. Right? The Oromo right has never been reinstated. The Oromo the Oromo's right to self-rule has never been reinstated. Everything is done by this government, by this system, the system that was implanted by Menelik and was systematized by Haile Selassie, and then it is still going on. So when people say this is an Oromo government, it is really an insult, where they say, you know, since we determine for you how things go, and we tell you that it is your government, and you have no option other than to accept that it is your government. And now somebody else was doing this to you. Now the government, your own children, they call it, are doing this to you. But their children is doing that to us. And the Oromo has been in a worse situation since this regime came to power. The one you said when he went to Nakamte and other places said, yes, he speaks the language. When he speaks the language, he's relying on what he said. He said once, if you remember, the Ethiopian people have short memory. So what we did to them yesterday, what we told them yesterday, they don't remember. So they see only what we are saying now. And he's hoping that the Oromo people have forgotten what he did to their kids. Even 2 weeks ago, or a month ago, they killed Bate Ugersa, right? They assassinated him. They captured him from his hotel room. Right? They broke his arm and tied it back and killed him with 11 bullets, 5 to his head, right? And 6 to the rest of his body. And he went to Nakamte and he said, we are your kids, you know, we are your sons. Because you don't remember what we did to Bate yesterday. You don't remember what we did to Achalu Undesa. You don't remember what we did to Hussein Jabbar. You don't remember what we did to Mohammed Hussein in Harar. Right? You don't remember what we did to, what is his name, Galan, right? The singer. This is
And
this
the
is how
Abba Gadaa Karayu, like 15.
yeah
Karayus.
exactly the 14 leaders of Abagada leaders, those people who are the library of the Oromo Gadaa system that had been intact. That thing didn't happen to them even under Minilik. It didn't happen under Haile Selassie. It didn't happen under Mengistu. It didn't happen under Meles. It didn't happen under Mengistu Haile Mariam. The killing of these leaders happened and when Abiy is in power. Where Abiy, our son, our Oromo brother, came to power. So this is an insult, right? So this is what do you call insult on top of injury? On top of the injuries we have sustained, the mornings we go through, the psychological depression we go through by the assassination of Batte Urgesa, Chalun Desa, right? Batte Urgesa and Galan or Jabar Hussein or thousands, tens of thousands and probably millions that didn't surface because they were not known, their names didn't appear in the daily news. And he's saying, we did that in your name. We are your sons and daughters, so we did that. And then in that very, very speech, he said, I cannot go to Nakante town, right? He went to the airport. He said, I cannot go down to the town because they would kill me. Right? If he is an Oromo leader who brought this much needed freedom by the Oromo, why do you think Oromo wants to kill him? Why did the Oromo embrace the OLA? When the government vowed to finish them off in 15 days, and that did in the last 6 years, and happened so many times, right? They vowed to do that, and it didn't happen because the Oromo people protected them, the Oromo people fed them, the Oromo people, right, guided them and wisdom, right? So, no, the current government is not the Oromo's government. It has no Oromo interest at heart. The Oromo are its number one enemy. That's why the issue, like when other political parties in Amara and so, they come and say, oh, you know, the Oromo government, they know what is happening to the Oromo. But because of their hatred for the Oromo, they want to align the Oromo with Abiy. And when they were standing with Abiy, when they went to war with Abiy to finish off the Tigray, they said we would eradicate Tigray. Not only from the earth, but from people's memory as well, they said. When they went to war with Tigray, the Oromo said no. There is no Oromo intellectual, Oromo elite who came out and say, yes, I support the war in Tigray. No. Regardless of what TPLF done to the Oromo people, the Oromo youth, the many youth they killed, the many youth they gathered in their prisons in Mekelle, and whose whereabouts has never been known. The Oromo never went after TPLF and said that TPLF or the Tigray people needs to be eradicated. No, that's not the Oromo struggle. The Oromo struggle is for freedom. The Oromo struggle is for equality. The Oromo is an egalitarian society. Oromiyaa is an egalitarian society. The Gadaa system is an egalitarian society where we say everybody has a right to exist and the right to pursue his or her own dreams, right? We're not after people. We are after our own rights. We want to establish our own rights. We want to exist as a people, determine our fate as a people. We were misaligned. We were targeted as a people, so that the rights, not only the individual rights, but the group rights is very important to us. That's what the Oromo struggle for. And so Abiy has said many times that, I have done for the Amara more than I've done for anybody else. Or he said he has done for the Amara more than any government does. In whatever looks like, until the moment came last year where they came to threaten his position. He was for them. He was doing everything with them. They were also the ones who kept him in power. They said he is our Moses. He said God sent Abiy for us as God sent Moses for the Hebrew. They said he is our liberator. What happened is the Moses made a treaty with the TPLF. And because this treaty was negotiated by the United States, and Abiy cannot renege in this treaty in its totality and be able to survive, his survival requires that he makes peace with the TPLF. And this peace with the TPLF is a breaking point for the FANO. So they said, if you are now willing to get rid of the TPLF and we are going to make an alliance with the TPLF, then we'll be against you now. So the war it's not really a fundamental issue. The war is an issue onto who is going to hold on to power. And so since he is not getting rid of the TPLF or the Tigray, eradicate the Tigray people, not only from the land, also from our memories, the way Daniel Kubret put it, and that is not possible. And when that failed, they become enemies and they are fighting now. That's why you don't find many political parties or any group aligned with the FANO as is. That's why the FANO couldn't make probably political inroads anywhere. It's not possible when you stand that way. So that's one thing. As to the diplomatic win you mentioned, yes, it's a diplomatic win. We need to keep at it. We need to work towards it. The Oromo elite, the Oromo intellectuals need to come together and find a way to advance that relationship so that relationship takes hold. It looks like it's not that strong as it is now. It's a very good move, but the move has not been, it's not been settled. That really needs a work, right? The fact that the OLA has committed its commitment to peace, its commitment to peaceful dialogue around the round table, that it has nothing to hide. It has nothing that is contrary to any other nation. Its fight is for the rights of its own people, and that is a God-given right, which any nation around the world would do for its own people. So the fact that they were not willing to raise their arms unless there is a political settlement that leads to a referendum where the people make their own decision as to what kind of association, what kind of statehood they want to have. Until that is done, we're now going to start with, disarmament. The first one is really the issue that brought this war into existence needs to be solved. It is only and only if this issue that started the war in the first place is resolved, that would put our arms down is a right stand. So they need to keep at that. They have to be open, always open, remain open for any political dialogue by any genuine third party, right? In a very genuine and what do you call it? Neutral, right? Unbiased environment where your safety is safeguarded and where your people's right to self-rule is accepted. Then the OLA or any Oromo political party, whether it is OLF or OFC, we don't fear, we don't have fear from democracy. Democracy is our friend, right? Democracy is a friend to us. We don't want to subjugate anybody. We don't want to take away the right of anybody, whether that body is a major group or a small group. We want, what do you call, minority rights be respected, individual rights be respected, right? Groups' rights be respected. And what has happened is the international community was not listening to us. The international community was not dialoguing with us. They were just talking at us. They were just saying you should do this and that, without them understanding the nitty-gritty of the issues that led us to where we are now. It is the Oromo is the only major group around the globe that doesn't have that is marginalized. Let me put it that way. That's the only major group that is marginalized. And I don't think we want to live on the margins any longer. And any Oromo who understands that we have been suffering on the margins for much of our life has to appreciate that, no, we don't want to be marginalized anymore. We don't want to subjugate anybody. We don't want to take the rights of anybody. But at the same time, we are not willing to be marginalized. If getting rid of marginalization needs to be fighting, or if it is calling for, I don't know, the disintegration of Ethiopia, then let that be.
Thanks so much, Dr. Hambisa. So finally, you mentioned about the FANOs, and of course, we can't finish out today's discussion without saying something about that. The FANOs, they claim they represent the Amara people, but they fight in Oromiyaa regions. They fight in Horobudru, Walaga, in Walaga zones, the crossing border from the Amara region to the Oromiyaa region. And some of them who were settled in Oromia region during the 1984 Great Ethiopian Famine. And the Oromo people welcomed them, gave them land, gave them resources, cattle, and fed them, rehabilitated them. Now they are fighting against the same people who hosted them. And it doesn't end there. They are also attacking the Oromo people in Wallo, in Kamise, in Ataye, in Kombolcha, in the Wallo region, the Oromia special region in the Amara state. And this has to stop. Like you said, they have to, come to the realization that they can no longer impose their dominance on the rest of the nationals in Ethiopia. They have to stop it and focus on how can they, struggle and achieve something that's good for the Amara people. Something that is good for the Amara people is not trying to impose their dominance on the Oromo people, the largest people in Ethiopia, or on the Tigray people. The good thing for the future of the Amara people is just to demand the rights of the Amara people within their own state, in the Amara state, and to live in an amicable, friendly, you know, a neighborly state with other nations such as the Oromo, the Fanos, those who operate in Oromiyaa, those who kill people in Oromiyaa, in Wallo, in Walaga, in Horoguru, Walaga, they have to stop. Otherwise, they are finding the animosity between the people, the Oromo people and the Amara people. That would not benefit either the Oromo or the Amara people, and to stop. And the same is true when it comes to the relationship between the Amara people and the Tigray people. You know, a lot of small nations are prosperous across the world. If you look at Norway, it's one of the smallest countries. And there are a lot of small nations in Europe that are economically giant. The Amara people should not just focus on grabbing land from the Oromo, grabbing land from the Tigray people. They can focus on within and help their own people economically. They can struggle to achieve democracy and, you know, for powers that emanate from the people, and everybody stands them if they do that. But when they go to other people's, you know, country, to the Oromiyaa or to Tigray and claim land or attack the civilians, nobody is going to sit down and say, yes, you did good, and keep on doing that. And so I feel the Fano leaders have to realize what is good and what is, you know, bad, and what they don't have to keep on planting seeds of discord between people, especially since this is natural and none of this society will disappear in the future. They will continue to live side by side. So it's not good for the future of the Amara people as well. And with that, I think I would like to conclude our today's discussion. And thanks so much, Dr. Amsa, for taking your time this Saturday morning and discussing with me on issues relevant to the political situation in Oromia and Ethiopia.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me. Thank you.
With that, we will conclude our today's discussion. Thank you, everybody, for staying with us. And until next time,